And look at that. Wow, that was just an epic fail. Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be a little bit of a different formatted video. I'm going to be doing a update to the UV pass filter modification that I did to my projector. A lot of people have had questions about it, and some people have tried it and had issues with it. So I'm going to disassemble my projector and give you kind of an update of what my filter is doing, and then some of the issues that I had with my filter that didn't really become apparent until after I disassembled it, and what I did to correct that. And so let's get started. I'm just going to kind of talk through what I'm going to do, and basically I'm going to pull the lamp out of the projector for my 3D printer. I've made several modifications to this projector, but specifically I've put a light filter on the halogen lamp to allow more UV light to pass through into the optics assembly, so you get more UV light output from the projector to cure the resin. I've had some people contact me because they've had issues doing this modification themselves, and had issues with the film on the filter flaking off basically after it was installed into the halogen lamp. I haven't experienced anything like that so far while I've been printing. I have put a couple hundred printing hours on this projector since doing this modification, and so I'm going to pull it apart and just let you guys see kind of how everything's been holding up, and then maybe try to address a few concerns maybe more people have been having doing this modification. Just like when we removed it, there's a screw on the front that I'm going to have to take off. To make it easy to replace the lamp. Makes it really convenient to not have to pull the entire case apart. Don't forget, you are going to need an Allen key, at least I am, to get my lamp out, because I replaced the screw that was originally installed. Normally it's a Phillips head screwdriver. Alright, and then once you're ready to pull the lamp out, just gently lift it. And then there's the cord that actually plugs it into the projector there. Remove that as well. Alright, so now the lamp is out of the projector. Go ahead and set this back on. The reason you kind of want to keep everything kind of set on top is you don't want dust to get into the internals of your projector as much as you can avoid. So we're going to set that aside. We're going to take a look at the lamp itself. So it actually looks like the filter's in pretty good shape. If you guys can see that. So issues that some people had was the film on the filter was flaking off when they would install it and then run it, and within a couple of minutes the film would flake off, and you'd have lots of light, basically unfiltered light, going through your optics assembly. And so basically the modification failed at that point. And so after having talked with them for a little bit on discussing different possible causes of that, I think I actually got a pretty good idea how that tends to happen. Remember that this halogen lamp is consuming several hundred watts of electricity, and it gets very, very, very hot. And so what you see I have on the corners here, and if you watch the video of when I installed this, you'll also see I used a muffler sealant in the corners to hold the filter in place. Right, so muffler sealant is rated for extremely high temperatures because it goes on your muffler, and this sealant just basically holds it down in place because this filter is slightly smaller than the hot lamp, basically the infrared and UV blocking filter that is normally installed on a DLP projector. So took that filter out, replaced it with this one, but this one's a little thinner, so it just needed a little something to hold it down, and so I used a high temperature muffler sealant to hold it in place. Some of the other people that have contacted me saying they've had issues is they've used high temperature silicones to do the same thing. And what I'd imagine is probably happening is as this whole lamp gets very hot while it's operating, is that silicone, even though it's rated for high temperatures, it's probably off-gassing a little bit. And so those vapors from that silicone are probably not they're probably not behaving very well with the film that's on top of this, because all this really is a piece of glass with a film on it, and that film acts as a mirror for visible light and allows ultraviolet light to pass through it. That's why, like, it may not seem like it's a piece of glass or that it's going to let light pass through it, but it is in fact just a UV pass filter, right? So there's different kinds of filters. You can have high pass, low pass, or band pass filters. This is a band pass filter, and it basically filters out any light that is less than about 360 nanometers and greater than about 420, 430 nanometers in wavelength. And so by filtering out most of that light, there's less light going into the optics assembly on the projector, so there's probably lengthening some of the lifetime of the optic components, but it's also still filtering out the very, very high energy short wavelength UV light that would damage the DMD chip inside the projector. So by using a bandpass filter like this, you're actually probably saving most of the components in your DLP projector. It's still a little iffy, right? Like I said, I've had this running for several hundred hours and not had any issues with the DMD chip in the projector, or so far I haven't had any issues with the filter. But if you do this modification, like you are exposing the DMD chip to more ultraviolet light than it normally or otherwise would be exposed to. So you have to understand that may affect the lifetime of that DMD chip, and just kind of keep that in mind. But other than that, yeah, this looks like it's in pretty good shape. I'm probably going to put a little bit more muffler sealant on this before I call it a day, because this is all pretty dry, which really it should be, but since I pulled the cover off, it's removed most of the sealant that was kind of holding it down, so I'll get some fresh stuff in there. But other than that, the glass looks like it's intact. I think I'm going to actually pull it out here and take a look at the other side and make sure that there's nothing damaged on the other side. But before I do that, I'm going to put some gloves on to make sure I don't get fingerprints on anything. Alright, so I'm wearing gloves now. Biggest reason for this is when I pull this out, I don't want my oils from my hands to get on the mirror, and then once the mirror gets hot again, that it will those oils might degrade the film on the top of this mirror. So being extra cautious here to make sure I don't damage this. I'm going to pull this out. You can see the halogen lamp itself in there. We're going to go ahead and inspect the other side of this filter. And actually it looks like it got fairly jacked up. Wow, look at that. Huh. So it's kind of weird. The film is like raised up. It's almost like tinsel coming off the surface there. So it's, yeah, see if I can't get a bit of a background on it. Yeah, you can see it's very raised off the surface. Yeah, that's very interesting actually. And you can kind of see on the front then, there's a little bit, you might not be able to see in the camera, there's kind of some spots here where you can almost see just like a circle here where the light was probably focusing through, and it just looks a little miscolored. But yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. I'm pretty surprised that the back of this filter looks like this, because I actually haven't had any issues with the printing capability, and like it's really actually printed without any problems for a while, and it's probably been like this for a while. So that's actually very, very interesting. Kind of curious why it's worked so well in lieu of that. It's probably because like this is a double coated filter, so there's actually a UV pass filter on one side and the same UV pass filter on the other side. So what's probably happening is because the back side is exposed to so much more light, it got damaged, and the front side is not exposed to nearly as much, and so it lasted quite a bit longer. But yeah, that's really, really interesting. I think I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit. Alright, so as I kind of inspect this a little bit, I also want to kind of point out I did not have any of the high temperature sealant on the back side of the filter where it actually touches the casing, so I'm a little curious to see if there's some heat transfer between the glass and the casing of the if there's some heat transfer between the glass and the casing of the lamp that caused the filter to basically degrade like that. But it is a circular pattern, so that indicates like it is the focal point of the light going through the lamp. So yeah, that's very interesting. All right, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and try and gently wipe the surface of this, try and get some of this filter recovered, and actually take a look at exactly where and what's missing off of the filter. We can inspect it a little further from there. Alright, so I put it on a black background here, just so you can probably see the film as I brush it off. I'll be using this kind of small paintbrush to just gently brush off any of the film that's basically come off of the top of this filter. Yeah, it's basically like tinsel. It's actually a little cool. But it looks like, yeah, basically all the filtering material on the front of this has just completely separated. And it's probably only just barely being held in place by probably almost just by gravity from the orientation of the projector and the printer, since it was facing up. It's probably mostly just gravity holding it in. But yeah, look at that. It pretty much removed all of the filtering material from the focal point where the light actually shines through the filter. That's kind of interesting to me. I almost wonder if it would be better to have another type of filter, so maybe a low pass filter in the sense of wavelengths, right? So lower wavelengths get passed through, but maybe filter out everything that has a wavelength greater than maybe like 600 nanometers, basically, so that way you step down your filtering, so that way you're not just kind of blanketly like trying to filter everything all at once, because that might be why the filter became damaged, is there's just so much light getting shown through it that it couldn't take it. And since it worked so well for so long, I imagine it was probably linked to the fact that the projector remained relatively undisturbed while it was running. So even though the filtering material separated, it was still in place, and so even though it wasn't physically attached to the glass, it was still there, and so it was still filtering light. And then of course you had the front that was still filtering light, so basically the light would come up through the glass and then bounce back through the glass because it would hit this filter that would also act like a mirror. So it you get that double filtering effect, and so that's probably why it still worked as well as it did. But yeah, that's interesting that it failed. And I guess anyone who had issues with this, unless you, I guess, have breakdown of the filter on both sides, you actually could probably still run the printer even if the filtering material breaks down on one side. Like I said, the printer ran for several hundred hours like this. The video I put up of how to use the grayscale mask generator was done with this modification and probably with this filter in this condition. And so it doesn't necessarily, I guess, completely keep your printer from working, but it definitely has a hard time surviving in that environment. So I think I'm going to look into how to actually fix that, so that way you got a little better of a long-term solution to make sure that doesn't happen in the future. But good thing I've got more of this filter that I can cut to make new ones. All right, we're back and made some changes. So took another piece of the UV pass filter, cut a new piece, and instead this time, before just installing it into the lamp, I basically embedded it into PDMS. And so PDMS has a max stability temperature of 200 degrees Celsius. So that's well into the 400 degree neighborhood Fahrenheit, and that's going to be a lot hotter than the lamp's going to get inside your projector. So this PDMS should protect the filter quite a bit, and because PDMS is clear, it shouldn't really affect the optical quality. Some of the issues that I had when I made it, I got some bubbles on one side. We'll see how big of a difference that makes. I'm really more concerned at just proving that the PDMS will keep the filtering film on that's bonded to the glass. It'll basically keep that secured to the glass, and it'll also provide a little bit of thermal insulation to the glass to prevent any peeling off of the film again. All right, so you can see here the film is completely embossed in PDMS. It gets some bubbles on one side. You can see those there. Basically, this was sitting flat on a piece of acrylic, and I poured PDMS over the top, and then some PDMS that got underneath basically cured, and as it cured, it gassed off and created air bubbles. So some issues there with the manufacturing this, but to the extent that it is completely embedded in a PDMS, we'll see whether or not this increases the lifetime of the filter inside the projector. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and install this new improved UV filter, and what I'm going to use is muffler tailpipe sealant. I did this when I initially installed the first filter in here, and I think it's one of the reasons why it lasted the way that it did, because this will both hold it in place, and because it's high temperature, it's not going to be degraded by the temperature of the lamp, but also I think it acted as a little bit of a thermal insulator as well. So the four corners of the lamp where the filter touches the actual body of the lamp, I'm going to have some of this, and that should hopefully provide a little bit of thermal insulation to prevent any degrading of the filter or the PDMS that's encapsulating it. So I'm just going to take a little dab. A little bit in that corner. So I have it on all four corners now. I'm going to put the filter in. I'm going to put the bubbles down first. Shouldn't really matter, but I'm going to squeeze it in there. All right. It's wedged in there pretty reasonably. I've got the top cover too. It's going to go on next, and I'm going to put a dab of sealant on top of the filter as well to provide some thermal insulation to the top of the filter, since basically this will be contacting the body, and don't want any heat conducted through this onto the filter. And then we're going to put the cover back on. It's probably going to be a little bit of a tight fit, and that is okay. Clean up a little bit of excess. Alright, that should do it. We'll see how well that works. It takes about 30 minutes for the tailpipe sealant to cure. We'll give that a chance to do so. Then we'll put the lamp back in the projector and probably run a print without actually trying to print anything, just a dry print to make sure that the filter doesn't degrade over time, and we'll pull the projector back out after maybe like a 12-hour print or so, and we'll inspect it. Alright, so put the projector in the printer, turned it on, let it run for about 5 minutes or so, and I heard a little bit of a weird noise and saw a little bit of smoke come out and turned it off. So I'm going to open it back up, see what happened. It sounded kind of electrical, what was happening, almost like a buzzing sound or something, so I'm really not sure what's going on. I'm going to open it up and get a better idea of what's exactly happened. A moment of truth, pulling the lamp back out. Alright, first impressions of the lamp is that everything looks like it's still intact. I don't see anything wrong with the bulb. I don't see anything obviously wrong with the inside of the casing. There's no like burn marks. I don't see anything that looks like it was caught on fire or something terrible like that. No like arcing or sparking, nothing like that. It does look like there's fragments for the filter on the glass, but that might have been from the previous filter that was in there. Go ahead and I think I'm gonna have to pop the filter off the front of the lamp just to verify its integrity. Yeah, I don't know if you can see behind that, it looks like the back of the filter's blown out. Yeah, I'm sure you can't see it. I'll pull it off and you can take a look. Oh snap. That might be the issue. Look at that. Well now. Wow. That is cooked. Absolutely cooked. And look at that. Wow, that was just an epic fail. That really sucks. My guess is because the way the filter works is it reflects all the light that it doesn't allow to pass through, and so because the majority of the light can't pass through, basically goes through this layer of PDMS, hits the filter, and it acts as a mirror for the majority of that light. That light bounces back the other way, back through the PDMS. You're basically getting double travel through that PDMS, and it must just absolutely bake it within just a couple minutes. So I think I'm gonna see if you can get some of the PDMS off, see if the filter's actually still intact, and if so, I think it's just a matter of figuring out a better material to use for this. It's actually probably a good thing to note is that the bubbles, and I hadn't thought about this, the bubbles would actually act as gas pockets, so as those heat up they would expand and get hot. So I suppose the presence of air bubbles would, it's not only just like a defect that affects the light path, it's also a defect that could destroy the PDMS. So, because the air pocket also then has the ability to get really hot as well. Yeah, it looks like the filter itself is mostly untouched. It's really just the glass portions. I'm sorry, the filter's pretty much untouched. It's just the PDMS that's busted up. That is really interesting though. Well, I might have to try a second round on encapsulating this in PDMS and try it a little more thoroughly. I'm genuinely interested in what you all think about this. For the time being, I'm going to go ahead and say the UV pass filter upgrade or modification is a bit of a no-go, just because the filter by itself won't stand up to the light output from the lamp, and it doesn't look like there's a simple solution for just protecting the filter. So if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments. I'm certainly open to any suggestions. Other than that, thanks for watching, and consider subscribing. I'll go ahead and add an update to my UV pass filter video so people know that it's been somewhat debunked or needs some fine-tuning. So yeah, anyways, I'm learning alongside the rest of y'all. Anyways, thanks for watching.